Here is the part 2 of absolute value equations. From part 1 we said for positive k, if you have the absolute value of ax plus b equals that positive number, we say this right here is equivalent to the equation ax plus b equals plus or minus k. By plus or minus k, you have two equations. One would be ax plus b equals to positive k. The other equation would be ax plus b equals to negative k. Let's look at an example. Let's suppose we have the following problem. Excuse me. 6 plus 3, absolute value of a divided by 5 equals positive 12. Now, when you're solving absolute value equations, you want to get the absolute value part by itself on one side, meaning get rid of the 6 and the 3. So the first thing we get rid of is the addition and subtraction of those numbers. Subtract 6 on both sides, you get, this is a over 5 equals positive 6. And because the 3 is being multiplied to the absolute value, we do the inverse of that, which is division, divide by 6, and then we get absolute value of a divided by 5 equals 2. Now, this form right here is the form that we have right here. The absolute value is isolated, and it's equal to a positive number. So we can say this is equivalent to the equation what's inside the absolute value equals plus or minus that k. That's what you get from this part. And then this gives you two equations. One equation is a over 5 equals the positive 2, or a over 5 equals the negative 2. Multiply both sides by 5. So if you times this by 5 and times that by 5, the 5 cancels. You're left with a equals positive 10 as one solution. And then over here, multiply by 5 and times 5. 5's cancel. A equals the negative 10. So your a value needs to be positive 10 and negative 10 in order to satisfy this condition here. And again, absolute value, if it's equal to a positive number, it's always going to have two answers. If it was equal to a 0, it would have one solution. If the absolute value is equal to a negative number, this can never happen, so it has no solution for that case. So let's look at example 2. Is absolute value of 10 minus 2m is equal to 10. Well, my k value is positive, and the absolute value is isolated on one side. There is no addition, subtraction, or there's no other number than 1 here. So that means this is equivalent to the form 10 minus 2m equals plus or minus 10. So that means we have two equations, with one being 10 minus 2m equals the positive 10, or 10 minus 2m equals the negative 10. So I'll start with the negative 10. Subtract 10, subtract 10. We get negative 2m equals negative 20. Inverse of multiplication is division. Divide by negative 2, you get m equals positive 10. Or positive 10 times negative 2 equals negative 20. Over here, we do the same steps. Subtract 10. That cancels. You get a negative 2m equals 10 plus negative 10 is 0. Divide by negative 2, you get m equals 0. So this would have two solutions again because my k value was positive. Example 3, we'll look at the following. Let's look at the absolute value of 6 plus 10b minus 2 equals 22. So the absolute value is not isolated because of the minus 2 here. So get rid of that by adding 2 to both sides. This cancels. You have the absolute value of 6 plus 10b equals positive 24. Now that we have the absolute value is isolated, this can be written as two equations. What's inside the absolute value equals the positive of your k value, or 6 plus 10b equals the negative of that number. And then solve, subtract 6, you get 10b equals, this would be 18, divide by 10, divide by 10, you get b equals 18 divided by 10. Those two numbers are divisible by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9, 10 divided by 2 is 5, that's one answer. And then over here, subtract b, subtract 6. 10b equals negative 30. Divide by 10, divide by 10, you get a b equals negative 3. So the two numbers that make the problem work are 9/5 and negative 3. Problem 4. What if we have 4 times the absolute value of 3r minus 2 equals 80? Now we have multiplication going on with the absolute value, so we do the inverse of that. Divide by 4. Divide by 4, we get absolute value of 3r minus 2 equals 20. This is equivalent to 3r minus 2 equals plus or minus the 20, which means we get the two equations. 3r minus 2 equals 20, or 3r minus 2 equals the negative 20. Plus 2, 3r equals 22, and then divide by 3, you get r equals 22/3. For the next one, do the same steps. Plus 2, 3r equals negative 18. Divide by 3, you get r equals negative 6. Again, because my k value is positive, I have two answers. And example number 5. Let's look at 6 plus 2, absolute value 6v plus 10 equals 50. Now, let's isolate this first. Subtract 6 to both sides. Absolute value of 6v plus 10 equals 44. That's not isolated because of the 2, so divide by 2, 6v plus 10 with absolute value equals 22nd. Now it's isolated, and of course we know this means that the absolute value of 6v plus 10 equals 22 is equivalent to the following equation here from its definition. Now we make two equations. We have a 6v plus 10 equals positive 22, or a 6v plus 10 equals the negative 22. We subtract 10 to both sides. 6v equals 12. Divide by 6, you get v equals 2. Now for the second equation, we'll do the same steps. So we subtract 10 first, And negative 22 plus negative 10 is 6v equals negative 32, which we can divide by 6 both sides. You get 32, negative 32 over 6, which of course that can be simplified into negative 16/3 if you divide both sides, top and bottom, by 2. So here's the second answer. For the last problem, I'll look at 9 plus 8, absolute value of 8a plus 9 equals 65. So the first thing we do is we subtract the 9 to both sides. This cancels. 8a plus 9 equals 56. Now, we divide by 8 because we're multiplying. Inverse of that is division. This cancels. We have 8a plus 9 equals the number 7. Absolute value is isolated and it's equal to a positive number, so that means we should get 2 answers for this. The 2 equivalent form of this is 8a plus 9. What's inside the absolute value should be equal to the negative 7 or equal to the positive 7. Subtract 9, subtract 9, subtract 9, and subtract 9. This right here gives you a negative 16 equals 8a. Divide by 8 to get a equals negative 2. And then over here, 7 plus negative 9 is a negative 2 equals 8a. Now notice here, if I were to divide by 8 to both sides, you get a equals negative 2 over 8, which simplifies into a negative 1/4. So again, because my k is positive, you're always going to have that 2 answers.